From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast is Andre Johnson.
Junior.
Do not forget the Junior is very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, share, rate, review. If you are watching us on YouTube, do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. Be sure to like and share the video. All that good stuff. Leave the comments. We love it all. Also, hello out there to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. We've been on here for a couple of weeks now, months, if you really think about it. Glad you have found us here, and that's only going to grow as this, partnership grows further and further along. All right, today it is Monday, not a Victory Monday.
Surprisingly.
I don't even care. I don't even care. The Saints, an embarrassing defeat, obviously, at the hands of the dominant Las Vegas Raiders on their home turf Sunday. Just when you think it can't get lower, you can't go any further, it does. But this is not why we're here today. We're not gonna gloom and doom today. We got other plans, but before we get into that, Andre, how you feeling?
Feeling good. I was downtown a little bit today, taking part in some of the Sugar Bowl activities.
That's a good event. That's a really good event.
Yeah, they do a real good job putting that event on. I was at the Media Hotel hanging out. I saw some of my guys from Dayton, that I was with for a few minutes before this. So, yeah, it was really cool, really fun. Got a good game between Notre Dame and Georgia in the Dome in a few days. So, yeah, I'm excited.
All right. Well, that's good because the Sugar Bowl will be here. Wednesday is the game.
Yeah.
And it's always a good event. It's always a good, nice change of pace. It's the holiday weeks. A lot of people have off. And us covering the game, it's top notch in terms of the hospitality and the way they, treat the people coming to the game and also the people covering the game. The downtown hotel is usually pretty nice where you get to go. And it's always a great experience between, Georgia and Notre Dame. So it should be a pretty good game depending on how it plays out with Georgia not having a quarterback. We're not talking about Georgia or the Sugar Bowl today. We're talking about your New Orleans Saints, who have fallen to 5-11 and officially hit their worst record since 2005, nearly 2 decades, and just another chapter in what's been just a terrible season. A terrible season that is just steadily has gotten worse, and it's just one of those things. It's like, please just end it. Let's just end this, put it all out of our miseries. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, when you're that irrelevant into early December, like the Saints basically were, those last few weeks drag, man. It just drags, and drags. So, Saints, Raiders, normally we talk about the game, what happened, and our takes from that game. I'm just going to bypass that today because I was with Deuce last night on the final play. I was like, Deuce, I normally have a direction which way I want to go. I don't know. What do you want to talk about today? Because it just gets so frustrating. So, big picture, we are going to spin this a little bit, and we're not going to fool you. You understand where we're going to go with this, but I think that's the natural evolution of where we're at with the Saints this year's version. We're going to go that with the big picture.
Yeah, for a lot of fans that watched the game on Sunday, I know silver is probably the last color that you want to hear, but today we're going to go silver lining for the New Orleans Saints as they sit, like you said, at their worst record since 2005, the pre-Drew Brees, pre-Sean Payton days. We're going to look at the light at the end of the tunnel because, in a way, there is a silver lining to what's been a horrible season for the Saints. And Sean, that silver lining is what?
Oh, there's a lot. Silver lining, blessing in disguise, whatever metaphor, analogy you use for what we're about to talk about. I think there is. Let's talk it out. Look, 2024, the 2024 season is bad. We know this. It's gone from really high to start the season to terrible, slight uptick to just it's going to finish out bad. We understand that. But I personally just cannot wallow in the same repetitive negativity every single week. That really starts to wear on you, especially when you're not a naturally negative person, which I am not. You are not naturally a negative person. Believe me, there are a lot of people in this business who are exactly that, and they love this kind of stuff. I wish I could be that. I just can't. I can't wake up every day with just that negative feeling. So in saying that, we've got to start getting out of the realm of identifying the problems. We have spent so many pods on identifying the problems and the long road ahead this organization has in fixing those problems. Today, let's talk solutions. And this is not going to be fix it all. This is going to be, all right, now you have presented an opportunity. What are you going to do with it? I believe if processed right, the 2024 season could be the blessing this organization truly, absolutely, 100% needs. The slow drip death of mediocrity and being mediocre and just good enough to not be good enough, but just good enough to be good enough, over. You have now officially crossed over into, you're officially a bad team now. You are a bad football team. And if you want to be just a bad team, you don't want to be just a bad team, but you're on the brink of, okay, you're a bad team, but you're a bad organization. Well, what comes next will determine that. There's no two ways about this. We understand it. You just lost to one of the worst teams in football, one of the few teams in football that is in worse shape than you, with just as many injuries, at home, by 2 touchdowns, and were thoroughly outplayed. Oh, by the way, did you hear the Raiders got in late Saturday night into Sunday morning, well past midnight? So they had every reason in the world to lay down and lay an egg. Instead, the silver and black came to play. The black and gold did exactly that. They laid an egg. It's a total disaster of a game and a total disaster of a season. However, graduating or getting demoted from mediocre to bad can ultimately be a good thing. It really can. Facing mediocrity gave this organization, I believe, a false sense of hope. 7-10, 9-8. So close to the playoffs. Just a few tweaks here and that, and boom, we're back, baby. It's easy to talk yourself into that mindset of being close when you're a 1 game out of the playoff race. 2022, remember, they were in the NFC South hunt until the last game of the season. Last year, they were in the playoff hunt, NFC South championship hunt, to the last game of the season, because it validates your decision-making in that moment when you're close. Now we stay the course, we're getting there. Can't do that anymore, because now, at likely 5-12, let's just say they go 6-11, but likely 5-12, there is no more guessing. There is no more close. There are no more minor tweaks to make. There are no more excuses to avoid the conversation, which has naturally become, or it needs to naturally become, about making wholesale changes. The Saints, pardon the analogy because I understand what happened outside of football this year, but they're in the 2005 Katrina territory right now. Football-wise, record-wise, they were 3-13 that year. They're probably going to be 5-12 at best, 6-11 this year. Their worst record since 2005, and there were so many other factors in 2005 that obviously led to where they were. That's where they're at. That's just the reality. Yesterday's game cemented that. If you had any gray area or any thought of anything else, yesterday completely wiped that off the table. Had to. You cannot lose to the Raiders like that. You cannot lose to the Raiders 25-10 where you were thoroughly outplayed by a team that's in worse shape. That's probably going to fire their coach after 1 year, or at least that's sort of the whispers out there if you read the national reporting. So now, if you're the Saints, that reality has now slapped you in the face. What you do next, like I said before, will determine if you're a good organization or not. What you do next is vitally important. You have to start thinking solutions, because the problem is already it's manifested itself this season. We all saw it. Pick one. The Saints have it. But I think the first thing you got to do to start solutions, or to get to your solution phase, you got to get the right head coach. Yep. Got to get the right head coach, identify what's best for this organization, and stop at nothing to get the person that matches that description best. Next thing, and this is the hard part. Reevaluate your philosophy in certain areas. What things they have done the same way for a long period of time. What are those things that they've done for a long period of time that you may not realize it? They've become outdated. You have become outdated. It happens in every business. It happens in our business. I mean, some of the things we were doing just 10 years ago do not exist anymore. You've got to be critical enough to think some of the things that we have held on to for the last decade, 12, 15 years, it's not working anymore. And that's where the self-evaluation comes in. That is going to be hard because these are the core beliefs that have worked in years past. Those are the core beliefs that did bring you the most successful run in franchise history. Now you have to face reality in the face. Pardon the pun there. It's not that anymore. It's not. I would love for things to be 2009 again. Are you kidding me? 2009, Saints running, going wild, best offense that ever invented. That it was ever on a football field. All those great things. It's not there anymore. It's not even 2017 anymore. It's 2025 or about to be 2025, and you're a bad organization. So what do you look at? Or a bad team. So what do you look at? Well, what philosophies are you talking about? How you do your salary cap? You can't just do all the restructures from here on out. You got to do a few. You can't do them from here on out. Just unlimited, like you've done in years past. Draft prototype, that's another thing, because I think you've had enough draft busts now to look at some of the things you're doing from a draft standpoint to see if that is a prototype thing, philosophy thing that we need to change. Now, in fairness, I'm starting to get back a little bit back on the Jeff Ireland train a little bit because I'm starting to see a lot of these guys he drafted in other organizations doing well. So clearly,
for other organizations.
So clearly, something got. There was a disconnect somewhere from some players that when they left here, the player that the Saints envisioned them being became that player somewhere else.
Zach Bond.
No player epitomizes that more than Zach Bond. That guy was so lost when he was here. Now he's Defensive Player of the Year, maybe. It's unbelievable. So it's time to reprogram, recalibrate, reorganize if you have to, and let's restart this thing because no one wants to live in this negativity. None of us that cover the team, none of us that follow the team, nobody that pays money to go see the team, and I know the team doesn't want to feel like this. So let's talk solutions. That's mine. What's yours?
For a long time, Saints fans have been saying or whispering, rebuild, rebuild, rebuild. But from an organizational standpoint, they felt like their championship window was still open. Like you alluded to, there is no more conversation about a championship window. Man. That window is closed. That time is over. So now the Saints are in a spot where Dennis Allen is gone. For the last few years, there have been a lot of people who question whether Dennis Allen was the coach to bring this team in the future. Because of this year, we can see Dennis Allen is not that guy. It's more than likely that Darren Rizzi probably won't be that guy. So now you're going to have a new face, a new voice coming in. We're at a spot now where I think as a fan base, as an organization, for the first time, we can really look, instead of looking at Carr, Kamara, Tyron, DeMario, Cam Jordan, we can look past them.
Have to.
Now you have to start talking about, well, Carr is here for maybe one more season. Mm-hmm. Who's the next guy after Carr? Who's the next running back here, after Alvin Kamara? Who's going to take over that D-line now that Cam Jordan's gone? Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis, both closer to the end than the beginning. Mm-hmm. Who's going to kind of take over those positions that have been so stable over the last few years because you've had some really good veterans? As you look to get younger, you're going to have to look past that, and this season has made that abundantly clear. And we're at a spot where the GM is probably under fire from the fan base more than he's ever been. When you look at Loomis and the way that he's drafted, the way that he's managed the financial situation, it worked for a long time. It worked for a long time. It brought the Saints a championship. It made him a lot of money. He won a lot of games. It put him in a lot of great conversations. But now a lot of fans are looking at this and saying, okay, you were great in the past. Are you the guy to lead this team into the future? That's a fair question, especially as you look at some of the drafts recently. I mean, I was just talking to my friend yesterday about the 2022 class. Brian Brzee, he's growing. He has his moments. But Isaiah Foskey can't even get on the field for special teams. Jake Haener has essentially been forced
He's done, I think.
out of the rotation.
Yeah.
Jordan Howden is a rotational guy. He got jumped by Will Harris this year. Nick Saldiveri, despite all the offensive line problems that this team has had, Nick Saldiveri hasn't been able to be a consistent answer there. Kendre Miller can't consistently stay on the field. That's one of your – obviously it's still early, but so far that draft class has been one of your least impactful in a while, and you've had a lot of draft picks that you've swung and missed on. And now, because this season was so bad, there's no excuse. There's no alternative. You have to look at everything. You've been forced to look at head coach. You've been forced to look at a quarterback of the future. You've been forced to really take seriously replacing Tyron, replacing Cam, replacing DeMario.
Yeah.
You re-signed AK to the extension, but
it's one more year.
Exactly. Well, essentially, it's one more year. You know that at some point you're going to have to look for a replacement running back, and we don't know if that's Kendre Miller because he hasn't played any stretch of football that's been long enough to evaluate him to be that guy. So it's definitely forced the Saints to have a lot of conversations that previously might have been taboo, that previously may have been very uncomfortable, and in some situations may still be uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, they're conversations that you have to have, and they're not conversations you would have if you finish 9-8. 8-9.
7, even 7-10, I think they could have talked themselves into.
With these injuries, you could probably talk your way out of 7-10.
Yeah.
But 5-11, you just lost to the Raiders, and I don't want to hear any excuses.
Nothing.
Yes, you got
nothing.
Spencer Rattler is the backup quarterback. So is Aiden O'Connell. Gardner Minshew was their starter.
Yeah.
Injuries, they got plenty of injuries over there.
I think it was some starter, something like that.
17 injuries for the Vegas Raiders. A young quarterback. Yeah, Spencer Rattler's a rookie. Aiden O'Connell's a second-year player.
Yeah.
Amir Abdullah just had a legacy game at 31 years old for the team that came into the game as the worst rushing team in the NFL. So there is no excuse for losing to a team that was in the conversation for the number 1 overall draft pick. And the only fan base that's more upset probably than Saints fans for losing to the Raiders or Raiders fans for beating the Saints.
Right.
Because the Giants won yesterday, and had the Raiders lost to the Saints, they'd have the number 1 overall pick. Now the Patriots sit in number 1 overall. But yeah, this season has definitely forced the Saints to have a lot of conversations that are going to be uncomfortable, but are going to lead this team in a better direction in the future.
Look, and this is honestly, it had to be this way. It had to be this way because another, like I said, 8-9, 7-10, middle of the pack, 9-8 season, you probably would have kept the status quo and kind of did a little bit of a gentler approach. Maybe, switched a few things here and there. But now you've got to really dig deep. And it's the first time they've really had to do that in 20 years. Yeah. So I understand it's hard, especially it hadn't just been that long of a time, 20 years, where you really hadn't had to make so many drastic changes. They've also had a lot of the same people and a lot of the same positions for, call it the last half of that time. So you got some people really set in their ways. And culturally, a lot of people have had a lot of success. And now some of those people are going to have to look and say, you know what? I can't do it like this anymore. Yeah. We have to evolve our thinking here. Whether that's draft, whether that's salary cap, whether that's free agency, whether that's just organizational structure, whatever the case may be. That's hard to do, man. Like I said, we're in a business that changes all the time. I mean, some of the stuff we're doing now versus what we were doing maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, just when you get good at that, all of a sudden it changes. It sucks. It sucks. But you know what? You adapt or you die. So I do think the next few months are going to really tell it. This is 2024 Saints are a bad football team. But the New Orleans Saints organization, are they a bad organization or are they a good organization? We'll know over the next couple of months with the decisions that they make going forward. So that's going to be interesting. It's funny. You mentioned a few of those names. I almost had it to where I was almost going to include in this pod. Give me the young pieces under the age of 26 that you can build around on this roster. We're going to save that for another pod.
Yeah,
we're going to save that for another pod
because that's going
that could really take the whole half hour if we had to. But I didn't want to do that for this one because I just want to get the ball rolling. So our words may not have sounded positive, but I think that's a positive spin because I think now there is no more denial. And if you're still in a state of denial after this, then whoever's still in a state of denial now has to go. Has to go. Like, you have to go. That there has to be an acknowledgement of where you truly are as an organization right now. So that's where we're going to spin it, and that's what we're going to do it. And we're probably going to do it regardless of the outcome of the Tampa Bay game because, let's be honest, they're probably going to lose that game because Tampa needs to win that game to ensure the NFC South championship. Y'all had a lot of questions for us, and they started coming in right after the game on Sunday, so we're going to get to a few of those right now.
This one right here was one of my favorite ones because this was a guy who I wanted to talk about. When I woke up and I thought about the podcast, I said, I want to talk about this guy. And shout out to Brandon from Laplace for asking the question that was on my mind. Injuries aside, How much of the Saints' lack of success on offense lately affect Clint Kubiak's chances of returning next season? Clint Kubiak being the offensive coordinator for the Saints. And Sean, I'm going to lead off on this.
Go ahead.
Clint Kubiak. I was looking at some of the games throughout the season, but we'll start with the one on Sunday. 0 points in the second half, 0 for 8 on third down conversions. And when I saw the scoreless second half, it just felt like I was watching the same old movie on repeat. I mean, it's been a theme of the season. You start in Tampa. They scored 27 points in the first quarter or the first half. All happened in the second quarter, actually. Obviously, 7 of those was from a punt return from Rashid Shaheed, but you had an Alvin Kamara rushing touchdown. You had a Spencer Rattler passing touchdown to Bub Means. It's actually a close game without Derek Carr against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a potential playoff team. You score 0 points in the second half. Broncos, a complete another offensive failure. The Chargers in LA, you were only down 9-5 at halftime. You lose that game 26-8. Only 3 points in the second half. Carolina, the game they lost to the Panthers. Halftime, you're up 13-10.
I know, they were up that game. People remember that, right?
Yeah, you were up 13-10. You lose that game 23-22. Atlanta, the game they won, Rizzi's first game, you scored 17 points in the first half. You finished the game with 20. You scored 3 points in the second half, and you went scoreless in the fourth quarter. There were a lot of factors that led to them winning that game, and some of them, they got a little lucky in some situations. Typically, you can't score 3 points in the second half of a close game and come out with a win. The Packers, we talked about that. That was a complete disaster. And then we saw the Raiders yesterday scoreless in the second half. I think about it as, a boxing match or a UFC fight, where you come out and you're really good in the first round. And you're rocking your opponent in the first round. You get some good punches in. Then the two of you go to your corner and you come out thinking you can do the same thing. But that other corner that just got rocked in the first half or in the first round, in this analogy, their coach was talking to them. They made changes. So now they're making counter punches and you're not countering the counters. Clint Kubiak has not shown a consistent ability to adjust to the adjustment. You can't run the same game plan all game, especially whether in the games I named, that was with Derek Carr and with Spencer Rattler. Like, no matter who you've got to be able to throw counter punches, and his ability to counter what the defense has adjusted to his offense in the second half, it's been glaring. And I think that's been a big problem. And he's actually gone pretty blameless for these offensive struggles.
I think he has. I mean, Carmichael could never get away with this.
Never.
Could never get away with this. What I don't like, so you scored 47 against the Saints. Against the Panthers. 44 against the Cowboys. Then 12. Then 24. 13. 27. 10. 8, 22, 20, 35.
Yeah.
Bye week. Then 14, 14, 19, 0, 10. That's, your 3 highest games up here, and you have there's only 1 or 2 games with 20 points, which is pretty much I guess you'd call the average or the medium in today's NFL. Way too highs and lows, way too many highs and lows. I mean, you cannot be putting up 47 one week and then 10 the next. I mean, you can't. The swings cannot be that drastic. And it wasn't like the injuries certainly accumulated and piled up. But I don't know that they've had, other than maybe the Denver game, that really stands out, where they had every single person out at one time. It felt like there was kind of an in and out mixing and matching of guys coming back, guys leaving, guys coming back, guys leaving. So I know there's a challenge there. But there has to be a pattern, a recognition of the pattern of the second half of games. Kubiak has struggled. I mean, there's got to be some kind of counter to what's happening in the second half when teams clearly have picked up on what you're trying to do in those type of situations. And I know the excuse or the reason is going to be, look, if we had Derek Carr for the entire season, we probably would have managed this a little bit better, and the offense would have been better. No doubt about that. No doubt about that. But I do think Kubiak, and I don't think he gets fired. Well, if they get a new head coach, he could get fired.
Especially if it's an offensive-minded head coach.
If they get a new head coach, he get fired. Now, somehow, maybe a defensive-minded head coach, even that, I mean, they don't want their own guy. So yeah, I think it's very realistic to think. I just completely flipped within the last 30 seconds. I think it's very realistic that this could be a one and done for Kubiak, just because of the circumstances of them looking for a new head coach. Usually means the new head coach, if it's not someone promoted from within, it's probably going to come in and get a whole new staff.
Yep. And then we got time for one more, and it's kind of sticking with the offense. This one from Michael McLean from Thibodeau, and we could probably do a whole podcast on this, but we got about a minute and a half. Why do so many Saints fans hate Derek Carr?
It's the most uncomfortable thing I think I've witnessed in this job, because I generally have a good idea of who they like, who they don't. I mean, we're from here. We know these people. I have never seen more over the top hate for someone who has done relatively nothing to deserve it than the Derek Carr thing. I saw was that one thing. There was a big social media guy that. There's people over at the Ritz-Carlton flipping off the Derek Carr picture. It's like, and posting on social media. I'm like, what? Y'all are so off base with this. You've got some guys that y'all worship, and you got some guys that are, I mean, what have they done without him since he's been here? I realize it's only been 500 ball with him, but my goodness, I have never seen more unwarranted, unjustified hate for one person than whoever. I don't think it's the entire Saints fan base, but the part that doesn't like Derek Carr is so outrageous with their hate of him. It's frankly gotten a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, Saints fans want to win a Super Bowl, and a lot of people probably wouldn't say that Derek Carr is the caliber of quarterback that can put your team on his back and lead them to a Super Bowl. And if we're being honest about it, Saints fans were spoiled. They were spoiled for almost 2 decades. We were talking earlier, you said worst record since 2005. I was 10 in 2005. Now they're here again. I'm 30, like with a wife. That's how long it's been. And that's how long the Saints fans have been spoiled, and I think that's part of it as well.
It sucks. We'll have a different pot on that or a different day, I guarantee you that. Yeah. All right, we got to get out of here. For Andre Johnson Jr., I am Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.